Hi guys, if you're new here, welcome. We upload Hmong scary stories daily on this channel. You can support us by hitting the like and share button and subscribing to be the first to experience our newest videos. With that being said, let's begin. I just finished my CNA class and found a third shift job at a nearby nursing home. My family has told me that I shouldn't work at a nursing home because you have a lot to do and it's just hard labor. But I insisted because elders, they just have a soft spot in my heart. Plus working third shift, they pay pretty well. One fateful night, as I made my rounds, I encountered Mrs. Thompson, a fragile figure shrouded in darkness, shuffling aimlessly outside of her room. It was about 3 a.m. when I saw her. Concerned, I approached her, intending to guide her back to her room. But to my surprise, she resisted my gentle touch, her eyes fixed on some unseen horizon. I said softly to her, "Come, Mrs. Thompson, let's get back to your room." All I could hear from her mouth is her mumbling some gibberish. Mrs. Thompson does have Alzheimer's, so she does forget a lot of things. I gently held her arm, and with patience and soothing words, I directed her back to her warm and cozy bedroom. And that was when I laid her gently on her bed and put the covers over her. Right when I was gonna turn around and leave the room, I heard a loud crash. It sounded like it came from where Mrs. Thompson was sleeping. I turned on the flashlight on my phone to check around if any of her belongings fell. Searching without evidence, I left her room. Morning cast its pale light upon the nursing home. The morning shift nurse took over me and I left home. 2 hours later, the front desk lady called me. She said I have to get to the nursing home right away. When I arrived, I saw the nurse that took over my spot this morning. She looked like she was very shocked. The blood from her face drained, and she was so stiff all over. I asked her, "What happened?" She informed me that this morning after I left, she went to go get Mrs. Thompson from her room for breakfast, and right when she opened the door, Mrs. Thompson was laying on the ground in a fetal position, not breathing. Her eyes wide open with fear in them. She was already in post-mortem. The nurse in charge asked me, "Did I see anything last night when I checked up on her?" I told them no. Last night, around 3 a.m., Mrs. Thompson actually got up from her bed and she was roaming around the hallway. She seemed fine after I put her into bed. The nurse kept insisting, "Am I sure I saw her alive at 3 a.m. this morning?" I asked myself, how could I have interacted with her if she had already departed from this world? I told them, I swear on anything, I saw and I directed her back to her room. If you guys don't believe me, maybe you guys can check the cameras. My boss interrupted us and said that I can go home and rest while they check the cameras. I left home confused as ever. Although I was in bed, my mind was still racing about the image that I saw this morning. But I know I really did see her. After heavily thinking a lot, I finally fell asleep. As I was sleeping, I dreamt of Mrs. Thompson climbing onto my bed. She sat right on top of my chest and used her 2 hands to grab my hair. She screamed,
"Why did you bring me back to my room? If it wasn't for you, I would still be alive. Why? Why?"
Right when she said that, she gripped the hair on both sides of my head and tugged really hard on them. She tugged it so hard that it woke me up. What a relief, it was just a dream. But when I was getting off my bed, I saw clumps of my hair on the floor. It scared me so much, I started to tremble. But I still had to get up and go to work. When I arrived at work, I asked my charge nurse, "What did they find on the cameras?" She said to me, "If I show you the videos, Pa, can you promise me that you won't be frightened? I said, sure, I won't. She brought me back to the security room and showed me the tape. The camera was pointing in the hallway of Mrs. Thompson's room, catching me talking to nobody. I was talking to air when I was supposedly guiding her to her room. In the camera, you can see that my arm was around nothing. It was just me alone in that dark hallway. When I saw that, I could hear Mrs. Thompson's voice whispering my name with a cold breeze into my ear.
Pa.
I told my coworker, I think I can't work tonight. I'm gonna go see if I can go home. This tragic incident is really taking a toll on me. The charge nurse agreed with me, and she said that she can take over my shift for tonight. When I got back home, I told my dad everything. He is a shaman, so he went to his tanning and did a little ritual and came back and tied a red string around my neck. He said, Mintai, I didn't hesitate. I understood exactly why he said that. This tragic event made me see life on Earth differently now. I had to change careers and also got a new name. As a Hmong husband and father of 6, debt was a constant shadow looming over me, a dark cloud born of my own habits. Gambling had become my undoing, each paycheck eagerly devoured by the hunger of the casino. When Friday hits and my paycheck is deposited in my bank account, I start to get an itch going to the casino after work. I've had this habit for a long time now. Sometimes you lose, but when you win or hit the jackpot, woohoo, it's like a dream come true. As much as I love going to my favorite place, my wife, on the other hand, is the total opposite. My wife's words are so harsh when it comes to my addiction. This one time, I was gone at the casino for about 2 days straight and lost about $2,000 in cash. When I got home, my wife packed all my clothes in garbage bags and tossed them outside on the porch. I opened the door and she was standing right there in front of me. Hey babe, I'm home, I said. She gave me the death stare and said, Jay more tiger bite, where the hell have you been? Are you gonna keep doing this until I divorce you? I then said with a smile, Totsima ganya. She said in a raging voice, This is your last chance. You better get another job to help this family, or next time when you lose this much money, don't even think about coming home because all your stuff will be in the garbage. I was pretty upset that she told me to get another job, but I'm also glad that she didn't divorce me too. Desperation drove me to seek a second job. I've decided to try being an Uber driver so I can pick up shifts after I get off my morning job. One fateful evening, I got a notification about a pickup close to my house. I decided to pick it up. The location was an old bar, so isolated and not a lot of customers. I don't even know how this place is still running, despite the lack of business coming in. A young woman emerges from the shadows, her form shrouded in mystery as she settled into the back seat of my car. I greeted her. Where to? She didn't say nothing, but handed me an address on a piece of paper. I looked at the address and thought, hey, isn't this the cemetery's address? I know because I buried my dad at the same exact cemetery about 4 years ago. As we drove off, I asked her what was her name. I was trying to be nice, so maybe she'll tip me really well. She paused for a second and said, Kate. Oh, okay. Are you married, Kate? She answered, I was, a long time ago. Her voice so raspy and low, it was hard to pick up what she said. I can tell with the vibe, she didn't want to continue to talk. So I just ended our conversation by saying, It's okay, things happened. As I drove to her destination, an address shocked in darkness. As we got closer, I heard the sound of crying coming from the back seat. I thought maybe my passenger is crying, so I turned around to check on her. As I turned and looked, she was sitting right in the middle of the seat, with her head down. I asked, "Are you okay?" She slowly looked up at me, her eyes dark as death, her face pale as snow. Her eyes were bloodshot red, but what scared me the most was her neck. Around her neck, you can see an unhealed scar going from ear to ear. The scar was so badly infected and opened that you can almost see her windpipe. Right then, I knew she couldn't be alive with that kind of injury. I turned back and looked at the street instead. As we approached the corner of the cemetery, she calmly said, "You can drop me off right here." Still trembling, I reassured her, "Is she sure about this?" She said, "Yes, she will just walk home from here." She then said, "Thank you. Here's a small tip for driving me here." She placed something that sounds like money on the top of the middle compartment and got out of the car. I slowly drove away, but still watching her in my rear mirror. As I looked, she walked right through the gates of the cemetery. "Tuo, Tiradana," I said. The gates were closed, and she walked right through it like it was nothing. I stopped my car and put the emergency lights on. I slowly turned my head to see her tip. When I looked down, they were old, ripped-up newspapers. I got so frightened, I tossed her so-called tips out the window and drove 100 miles per hour home. My wife and I have been working for the same company for over 10 years now. We consulted with each other that we cannot be living check by check like this if we want a good life for our kids. We thought that since everyone is making so much money doing Desa, we have to get in on it, or at least be the first ones to do it, because once everyone knows about it, we won't be making much profit back. She agreed, and we talked to my parents about leaving our kids with them, and we would just send them a monthly payment to help out our kids. We set it off to the mountains of California. We got our land and started planting. 2 months into our journey, as the sun dips below the horizon, we started to put everything away and got ready for bed. For those who know, farming jobs like this, you live in a trailer home and that's where you sleep. But you eat and wash and do your business outside on the land. One night, as my wife and I was taking a quick bucket shower outside of the trailer, all of a sudden, we heard scattering in our field of bakondu. "Kotsi, koponana." My wife's voice trembling with unease, her eyes scanning the darkness that cloaked our field. "Kotili mushashe ichamoning tunye japane. Her words filled with frustration. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and gudapo, I ventured forth into the night, my senses alert to the slightest hint of danger that lurks within the shadows. I said, "Lingtu, I called out, my voice echoing through the stillness of the night. As I forged deeper into Guraitesa, a sense of foreboding weighed heavy upon me, my heart quickening with each step I took. And then I came upon it. A creature so big and furry, about 7 feet tall, sitting in the middle of Guraitesa, looking up into the moon, just gnawing away on a deer leg. Fear gripped me in an icy embrace as I stood face to face with this presence, my mind struggling to comprehend the unearthly sight before me. The night was so silent and dark, you could almost hear my heart pounding. When I saw the creature, I tried my best not to move or even make a noise. I was scared that if I did, that thing will charge towards me. I crouched down so slow, I can feel the pain in my back escalating. I decided it's best to keep my eyes on the creature while I walked backwards slowly towards my wife. When I got back to my wife, she looked at me with confusion. Kati, oya kalunching mahong yalika padana lo. I whispered to her. Chito hailu. Ukachimo puta shinoso kanya. Kati, kapora chitema, she said. I pulled her head towards my mouth and whispered. Molu kanya. Gachima ma mutalu trailer so. Chito hailu. For those who don't know what a Hmong is, it is a mythical creature that is in our Hmong stories that has been told from generation to generation. I would compare it to a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So we tiptoed back to the trailer. We locked the doors and tied the handles of the doors to a chair. That night, we hid under all of our blankets and didn't close our eyes, just in case that thing comes, and we will be ready. Morning rose, and as tired as we are, we were still frightened, but alert. I untied everything from the door and peeked outside. My wife then yelled at me to go check if the mohlu ruined our crops. Armed and ready, I went back to the same spot where I saw the mohlu sitting last night. All the plant where the mohlu was sitting was all broken and the branches were scattered everywhere. I just shook my head with disappointment and walked back to my wife. I informed her about what I saw. She was very upset, but said at least we were safe, then losing a little crop won't hurt us. Weeks later, I asked a good friend of mine to come help me double gate my land to make sure no animals, humans, or mohlu can get into my tesa.